Hey, this is Abel James. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. What's better for longevity, running or walking? It's a bit of a trick question, but if there is one answer, it's definitely walking. If you want to be fit and live for a long time, you don't need to subject yourself to sufferfests and slogging through long runs. In fact, when you combine daily walks with the habit of sprinting just about once a week, magic starts to happen. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined once again by our friend Mark Sisson, New York Times bestselling author and founder of Primal Kitchen and Peluva minimalist shoes. Mark had an incredible career as an elite endurance athlete, qualifying for the 1980 Olympic trials in the marathon. But as you'll hear, his high mileage running habit ultimately took a toll, leading him to rethink everything he thought he knew about fitness and longevity. In his new book, Mark makes a compelling case that we humans are actually born to walk, not necessarily run, and that walking is one of the most powerful and most underrated tools we have for improving our health, body composition, and quality of life. As usual, this conversation challenges mainstream fitness dogma, and Mark always brings the receipts. And if you'd like to stay up to date on some of the cool things that we have coming up, including live in-person events here in Austin, Texas, and beyond, make sure to sign up for my newsletter at abeljames.com. That's A-B-E-L James.com. You can also find me on most social media under Abel James or at Abel James. On Instagram, it's at Abel Jams. But no matter where you find me, I always love hearing from you. All right, on to this show with Mark Sisson. In this conversation, you'll hear why effective exercise includes walking, strength training, and sprinting, but not necessarily jogging or running, how biohacking is broken, why stem cell treatments might be much more dangerous than we thought, what longevity really means, and much more. Let's go hang out with Mark. All right, welcome back, folks. Returning to the show today is our friend Mark Sisson, a New York Times bestselling author, founder of Primal Kitchen, the founder of the Primal Health Coach Institute, and Peluva minimalist shoes. A world-class athlete in his prime, Mark's sporting career includes a 2:18 marathon finish and a fourth-place spot in the grueling Hawaii Ironman World Championship. His newest book is entitled Born to Walk. Thanks so much for being here, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Abel. Good to see you again, man. It's been a long time.
I know, it's been a long time. I think our paths originally crossed somewhere around 2011, 2012, although I had been reading Mark's Daily Apple long before that. And oddly enough, I think the way that I originally found my way to your blog was through Footwear, because that's when I was going deep into marathon training. And as you share in your book and in your work, you were running somewhere around 100 plus miles a week for, I think I've heard you say, 7 straight years. And now, at 71 years old, you haven't run a mile in somewhere around 30 years. So let's just start right there.
Yeah. I was a typical young endurance athlete of the 60s and 70s. This was a time when the running boom hadn't taken off yet. I was a skinny, ectomorphic, tough guy who was willing to endure a lot of discomfort in my training. I gravitated toward distance running just because I was too small to be playing basketball, football, baseball, hockey. I grew up in Maine, where pond hockey was a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
I started running as a young teen, and then went out for the track team and did very well. Won the mile, the 2 mile, and almost every event that I entered, and that just sort of cascaded into longer events. The longer the event, the more I excelled, relatively. And over the years, I decided I want to be an Olympian. I qualified for the 1980 U.S. Olympic trials. That was the year that we didn't send a team, but that was my goal, had been to qualify for the trials. But all along, and I was running 100 miles a week for many years. I mean, up to a maximum of 120 miles a week. But I got injured. I got beat up. I had colds and flu 6 times a year. My diet was highly inflammatory, thinking that I was having to take in all these carbohydrates. The footwear that I was using, the new cushion thick, shoes that Nike was putting out, ultimately contributed to my demise. So I kind of pivoted at the age of 27, 28 to looking at ways in which everybody could be fit and healthy and happy and strong and lean without all of that struggle and suffering and sacrifice and sweating and all the gnarly stuff that people assume they have to do in order to be, fit and lean and healthy. So the running boom which took off in the early 70s, kind of cascaded over the last 50 years. And as I'm writing this book on longevity, starting about a year and a half ago, and I thought, what does longevity really mean? And it means obviously being healthy and living a long life and having a quality life. It also means being able to move and being able to do things like play. What is the one common denominator? Oh my God, it's walking. We're born to walk. We are not born to run. Running is a bizarre occupation that a lot of people have taken up, and only a handful of people are appropriate to be running. The rest of us should be walking. And so I went down this new path of like, wow, this is an exceptional insight that is available to everybody, and we've sort of bypassed it because we've assumed that running is like everyone's obligation, like running's the best thing you can do in order to achieve fitness. And I'm here to tell you, it's not. It's maybe 50th on a list of all these other much more effective, efficient, and fun things we could do.
It's so interesting. As I was getting ready for this interview, and I was going through some of your recent videos and things like that, and so I'm sure the algorithm sniffed out what I was getting after, and so it showed me something from one of those morning talk shows on mainstream news that just came out a few days ago, and it said, "What's better, walking or running?" And they were 110% saying running is better. Everyone on the panel was just like, running is better because it burns more calories, you get more done in less time, yada, yada, yada. So maybe you can offer a counterpoint to that.
Sure.
Because there wasn't much, they didn't use scientific references. They didn't have personal experience to share.
Yeah.
They were just kind of talking heads as usual. So as someone with actual experience, please go ahead.
Sure. Well, running is, there's a handful of people for whom running would be an interesting choice, as it was for me, as a avocation or a vocation. Probably 2% of the population. Ectomorphs, skinny people with great lung capacity, genetically high VO2 max, and a high tolerance for pain. The rest of populations should be looking at kinder, gentler ways to access a more robust fitness strategy, a longer lifespan, a risk reduction for diseases of civilization, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, things like that. Muscle mass, strength, power. All of those things get compromised when you run. So when people say, well, running is the most efficient way of exercising, I mean, the first thing I'll tell you is 50% of runners get injured every year. At any point in time, 25% of all people who claim to be runners are injured. Like right now, 25% of all runners are injured. That does not speak well for consistency. When I was a runner, I was injured all the time. I just finished a podcast with Ben Greenfield, and we were, he was an endurance athlete, and he was a marathoner, a triathlete, and he shared the same thing. Like, always injured. If it wasn't one part of the body, it was another part of the body. An injury is your body's way of telling you you're doing it wrong. Yeah. So should people stop running who love running? Absolutely not. This book is designed to make available to everyone the opportunity to improve their cardiovascular fitness through walking and through lifting weights and through sprinting. Okay, I'm not saying we're not born to move fast or to run. We're born to walk. We're born to be able to run when it's called upon, but we're not born to run every day metronomically 8-minute miles, 10-minute mile pace. It's antithetical to human existence. None of our ancestors ran that much ever until 150 years ago, 200 years ago, when somebody invented cross country as a pub game in England. And then that morphed into track and field and road racing in the US. But most people today, look, 70+% of the American population is overweight. I'm here to tell you, running is a horrible way to lose weight. So if you are trying to readjust your body composition, you as the fat burning man, and I as the keto guy or the carnivore guy or the paleo guy or the ancestral health guy will tell you, the only way to burn body fat, the best way, is to reconfigure your diet so your body burns its own fat when you're resting. What happens when you go out and run? Well, most people run at a pace, at a heart rate that is too high for their body to burn fat. So when they're running, oh my God, they're sweating and they're groaning and they're doing the work and they're managing discomfort, and they finish after their 3, 5, 8 mile run and they're exhausted and they feel like they've done something valuable that's going to contribute to their health and their wellness, yeah, it's better than sitting on the sofa. But what they've done typically is they've trained too fast. They've gone out at a pace, even a 10-minute pace for most people, 9-minute pace, too fast for most people to be burning fat. So what do? Their watch says, I did 700 calories. My goodness, what a good boy am I, or a good girl am I? The 700 calories was mostly glycogen. It's mostly sugar. It's mostly stored carbohydrates in your body that your muscles are using because you've not trained yourself to be good at burning fat. When you do that, you burn the calories. Yeah, you burn the calories, but then because it's mostly glucose, the brain goes, oh my God, blood sugar's dipped. We're exhausted. I produced cortisol because it's a stressful activity. Running is a stressful thing. It's catabolic. In producing this cortisol and in burning these calories, the brain goes, we got to eat. We got to replenish the glycogen we lost. We have to eat more carbs. So there's this tendency, whether it's conscious or unconscious, to compensate by consuming at least the number of calories you burned off running. And over time, people notice I'm running, and I lost 10 pounds the first month I was running. That was great, but I've plateaued. I'm not losing any more weight. The reason they lost the first 10 pounds, if they went from being a couch potato, they probably lost a few pounds of water in terms of systemic inflammation from just this pro-inflammatory, non-exercising lifestyle. They probably, when you burn through your glycogen, every gram of glycogen stores 4 grams of water along with it. So you've sweated out a lot of the water from the glycogen. So there's an initial kind of, oh, wow, maybe this will work. But so many people get so frustrated, depressed because their running program does not result in weight loss. You look at the start of any major marathon, an LA marathon, New York marathon, Chicago, 80% of the runners are overweight. If running was that good a weight loss strategy, how come not everyone is skinny? How come they've got 10, 20, 30, 50 pounds to lose still? So running is a horrible strategy for losing weight. So between the injury rate, the fact that it's not a great way to lose weight, the fact that running is catabolic, what does that mean? It tears down muscle tissue. So every elite runner that you've ever seen is catabolic. They go to the gym, they lift weights. How come they're not stronger? How come their upper body's not bigger from lifting weights? Because running is catabolic. It tears down muscle tissue. Now, if that's your job, and your job is to be 5'10", 118 pounds, legs, lungs, and a head, and you're going to compete on a world-class stage, great. Go ahead and do that. But for the masses out there who are saying, I want to be stronger and leaner, and I want to improve my cardiovascular strength, running is a bad choice. It's catabolic. So people run 4, 5, 6 miles a day, 6 times a week. They don't have energy to go to the gym. Or if they do go to the gym and lift weights, they can't lift weights appropriately. And you and I know from the years of the stuff that we've done, when you go to lift, do the work, right? Like press yourself into doing resistance training, not just going through the motions. When you do the work, you build muscle. But if you do the work and you're not doing it, you're doing it half-assedly because you have no energy from the running that you did, or from the Orange Theory, or from the cycling class, or from whatever other 1-hour cardio pitch you were doing, if you don't have the strength to lift the weights, you won't do the weights appropriately, and then you'll tear the muscle tissue. You'll cannibalize that muscle tissue. Well, over time, you don't get stronger, you get weaker. And this is typical of most runners. So now you're not losing weight. You're frustrated because you're injured a lot, and so your psyche's all messed up. You don't have the energy to go to the gym and lift weights appropriately, so you're not getting any stronger. Your family is now a little bit affected because you don't have the energy to go throw the football with your kid, or to go on a family hike, or to wrestle in the backyard with the kids. No, I'm going to take a nap. I already did my workout today. All of these are like indications that running is just it got into the psyche of Americans 50 years ago with some perfect storm of Frank Shorter winning the gold medal at Munich, and then Jim Fixx writing a book on running, and Dr. Ken Cooper writing a book on aerobics that said that the higher you raised your heart rate over a long period of time, the longer you'd probably live. He actually recanted that. He walked that back about 10 years later. And then the advent of these thick cushion running shoes, which until Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman invented the thick running shoes, the only people who could run were runners, because you had to run light on your feet with perfect form. And even then, you had these thin minimalist shoes that would say, hey, 45 miles of running this week, that's enough, pal. You got to stop running. Well, Bowerman and Phil Knight invented this thick running shoe for good runners like me. So I would get my new pair of demo Nikes. I was a Nike athlete in the early 70s, mid 70s, these thick cushion waffle shoes. And it was amazing. I could go from my Chuck Taylors that I ran in, or my Onitsuka Tigers that were a 1/4 inch thick, and do 50 miles a week and be beat up from 50 miles a week. Now I could run 90 miles a week, 100 miles a week, because I had enough cushioning, but I had good form. I was light on my feet and I had good form. So I could do those miles. But the same shoes that the elite runners were using to put in more miles now enabled everybody to take up running and go, oh, I'm now a runner. I'm going to enter a 5K or a 10K or a marathon. I'm going to run to lose weight. I'm going to run to escape my troubles. I'm going to run to alleviate my my concerns and my stress. Well, the shoes enabled bad form. They enabled people to keep running with bad form. So what happened to running injuries? They didn't decrease, they increased as a result of these thick cushion shoes. So the book, Born to Walk, is kind of a complete picture of like how we even got to this point where we had this massive running boom where tens of millions of people were running who shouldn't have been running, who were burned out, frustrated, weren't getting the results they wanted. And what's the answer? Oh, maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe I should be doing more. Right. And so I want to dispel that entire myth and that entire notion and say, we humans, we are born to walk. We're born to walk a lot, as much as we can throughout the day. That's like a human imperative. Our digestion really depends on us walking a fair amount, moving around a lot. Our lymphatic system, our immune system, our joint systems. We're bipedal. We're supposed to be moving. If we were on 4 legs, like almost every other animal, okay, we could hang out all day on 4 legs and not have to. But the fact that we're on 2 feet, we're going to fall over if we don't move around much. So we're born to walk. We're born to sprint. And make no mistake, our ancestors sprinted a lot. They sprinted to get away from something that was going to kill them, or away from the fire or the marauding tribe, or towards something that was going to become dinner for them. But they didn't run, oh, hey, it's Tuesday. We don't have a hunt today. Let's just go do an easy 5-miler. Our ancestors, it was antithetical to health. So running was never a part of human existence, except for this anthropological little asterisk in human history that said we were persistence hunters. And if you remember the book Born to Run, which is sort of my book is a tongue-in-cheek answer to that, and it talked about the fact that persistence hunters will track an animal for 2 hours, and we have these built-in cooling systems that allow us to sweat and cool off while other animals are overheating, and we can track them down in the heat for a couple of hours and then jab a spear in them. But even the persistence hunt was not our ancestors running 7-minute miles chasing an antelope for 2 hours and then dragging it back to camp. It was walking and sprinting and hiding and crouching and smelling and sniffing and tracking for 2 hours. It wasn't some metronomic clop, 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 clop down the road. And our ancestors certainly didn't have long distance races. It was like calories were scarce, and you had to be very careful about how much energy you expended. So running is a completely new phenomenon in human history, and we're not born to run. We're born to walk.
And the metronomic approach, the more you look at it or you take a step back, is quite bizarre. You don't see that in nature, and kind of I liken it to, if you're trying to train, probably most people don't even remember manual cars, like a standard gearbox, but you're redlining basically the whole time and you're just staying on the red line, burning up all the machinery inside, as opposed to kind of cycling through your gears, right? Like engaging that lower level of walking or really light run and then revving it all the way up to that sprint, once a week or once every so often, but not all the time. If you're just constantly redlining all the time, no wonder we're not getting better.
Yeah. And so we see, again, a generation, now two generations of people who have just assumed that running is the quintessential activity. It's the best thing I can do for my heart, for my psyche, for my weight loss, and it's not any of those things, right? So in the book, we talk about the history of running and how it came to be and the myth of the marathon. And we're honoring this guy, Phidippides, who theoretically dropped dead after running 26 miles from the plains of Marathon to Athens to tell the townspeople, rejoice, rejoice, we won in this battle against the Persians. That never happened. It was a story that was co-opted by a poet in the 19th century. To the notion that that the thick shoes that everybody wears and everybody runs in today, that the thicker they are and the more cushioning they are, the more forgiving they are, and therefore the more you can run. Absolutely wrong. The more injuries they actually create. So what do you do? How do you approach this, especially somebody who's already a runner? Well, I say, look, I don't want to take running away from you. If you truly love running, and I don't think you do, I think you love calling yourself a runner or love having finished running, but I don't think you love running in the moment. But if you love running, how would it be if I could give you a way to get even faster? So you could be you could perform better when you do choose to run. And part of that is a strategy that involves a lot of walking, some time in the gym lifting weights, some time sprinting, because we absolutely have to do some high-end work. The last 5 years we've heard Huberman and Galpin and Peter Attia and Gabrielle Lyon all talk about VO2 max, right, being a metric. Yeah, I want to absolutely improve VO2 max. But one of the things that happens with people who go out and run daily at a heart rate that's too stressful for them, they don't improve their VO2 max. They practice hurting. They're not burning fat because they've exceeded that heart rate at which we call it the fat max heart rate, the heart rate at which you are burning the most amount of fat, but not going so hard that you now stop burning fat and start burning glucose, carbohydrate. So where is that point? And typically for most people, it's 180 minus your age. So if you're 45-year-old man, you don't want your heart rate to exceed 135 when you're doing 85% of your cardio work throughout the week. Well, for most people who are runners, they can't run slow enough that their heart isn't above 135. So if you can't, but people will say, but Mark, I can run at my heart at 155, 160. I'm like, okay, you can do that. A, you're beating yourself up. B, you suck at burning fat because I know, you're only burning carbohydrates. And C, you're in that black hole of training where you're training at a heart rate too high to burn fat and promote capillary perfusion and building an aerobic base, but too low, not high enough to promote VO2 max, anaerobic threshold, strength, power, and speed. So you're in a no man's land where all you're doing is practicing hurting 5 times a week and costing yourself energy that you could be using in the gym, building stronger muscles. And if you did a leg day, you'd actually run faster when you do go out to run. So we are putting together a program that's, when I say I started this book talking about longevity and what are the sort of the key elements to longevity, building a strong aerobic base, walking, low-level activity, zone 2 or lower, and then twice a week lifting weights, but lifting with mindfulness. Like, I'm going to go do the work in the gym. I'm not just going to go through the motions and have my trainer count reps and that's it. No, I'm going to build muscle intentionally in the gym. And if I do it well enough, I can only do it twice a week because I want to repair, I want to recover from the damage I did. And so that's another aspect of running. Running on a daily basis, all it does is it tears you down, and you don't get enough time to build back, and then you carbo load so you can go out and do it again the next day, and then you're training harder than you should, and you don't have enough time to build back. You accumulate stress over time. So not only are you at a heart rate that's too high to be burning fat and building an aerobic base, but it's also high enough the body perceives it as a stress and secretes cortisol. And what does cortisol do? Cortisol tears down muscle tissue to create more gluconeogenesis. Chronic cortisol suppresses the immune system. You get more colds and flu. Cortisol weakens bone density. So you get stress fractures, and you get all manner of other, maybe even some soft tissue injuries. So I hate to be so bleak for the runners out there, but the reality is, if you're a runner, I'm giving you permission to walk again, and do so in a way that's going to make you a better runner, even if all you ever do is run once a week.
And it's true. I mean, I started experimenting with this many moons ago at this point, but the way that I did it was, instead of going for these 5, 8, 10, 20 milers where I'm just trying to hit the fastest rate that I can and keep it steady the whole time, doing sprints and walking, and just like I was saying before, kind of going through those different gears and allowing your body to recover after each one of those sprints, such that at the end of it, the difference for me is that at the end of that kind of sprint walk session, I'm relaxed and a little bit gassed, but it's not a net energy loss like the other kind of running is. Like after you do a 8, 10, 20 mile or a marathon or ultra marathon, you are gassed in a very specific way that strength training does not do, right? Like, and maybe that way that you're gassed isn't all that natural. Maybe we're not supposed to live there, right? Because it does actual damage to your inside and out over time. I mean, your heart could be compromised.
No. And one of the chapters in the book is the dangers of overdoing it, of overtraining in an event like running, as an endurance athlete, either a runner or triathlete or whatever it is. I mean, I'm someone who damaged my heart from too much running over the years. And to this day, I still suffer from it. Now I don't have a life-threatening situation the way a million of my contemporaries do with AFib and things like that. But if there's a point at which the heart goes, the heart has no innervation. It doesn't feel pain. So the brain says, let's go for an 8-mile run. And the heart goes, all right, let's go. And the heart has to keep up with the demand that you put on it by deciding to go run. Okay, once a week, once every 2 weeks, that's great. But if you do it every day, it's like you wouldn't go to the gym and do and curl 300 repetitions of 75 pounds every day to get bigger biceps. That'd be crazy. Well, the heart has to work the same way. Now, what you just mentioned is one of my favorite workouts in the world. I go to the south of France, every summer. I do about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minute hike. But it's so inspiring that I find myself breaking into a sprint around a tree or through the meadow or whatever for 200 yards. And then I walk, and I'll walk for 5 minutes. And I only sprint when I have good form and I can feel myself like literally, not just slogging it through, but I'm energetic and I have good form. And then once the form drops and the energy's like gone, okay, walk. And it's one of my favorite workouts to do. And just like you said, I come back from that workout energized. I mean, I'm tired, but I'm not like having to take a nap that afternoon to offset the damage I did to myself or the work I did to myself. And I don't do it every day. I do it once a week, and it's my it's like my favorite thing. I look forward to it, as opposed to dreading. Look, when I was a runner doing 100 miles a week, 100 miles a week is, some days you do 20 milers. Some days you do an easy 10K in the morning, like 630 miles, and then a hard 10 miler in the afternoon. Every workout was like, you got to gird up for it, and you got to get psyched for it, and it was never fun. It was never fun. It was about managing discomfort. Certainly there was an aspect of feeling superior to other people who are sitting at home watching TV. But there was never a point where, oh my God, this is so fun. I'm just like, I'm running 5:45s in my workout and I'm crushing it. No, I'm busting my ass and I'm in the zone and I feel good about what I'm doing, but I'm just not, it's not enjoyable in the sense that playing ultimate frisbee or playing a pickup basketball game or playing professional football, whatever it is. All these other games are much more, enjoyable. So, yeah, but I love the fact that you do that. We call it Fartlek. It's an old Swedish term for speed play, Fartlek workout. That's the best thing you can do. So having said that, on those runs, I might accumulate, a mile or two worth of running over the 6 miles that I might cover. But I have not run a mile in 30 years. So I was a career runner, and after I ran as a runner, I became a triathlete. I had to run as a triathlete too. I've not run a mile in 30 years. Now, there've been a couple of times when I thought to myself, I'll put on the shoes and I'll lace up the shoes, I'll go down, and I would get 200 yards down the road and I'm going, what am I doing? This is not fun.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm going to get nothing out of it, and I would walk home. So that was for me the real kind of aha moment, is that I'm 71. I'm closer to 72 than 71 right now. I am very fit. I don't run at all. I sprint. I walk a lot, and I lift weights. And I play. I play on, I stand up paddle. I do fat biking on the beach. I do a lot of other. I'm able to take the elements of what I put together, the strong aerobic base from walking and a little bit of sprinting, and put those into I'll do a hard 1 hour bike ride on the beach, a fat bike on the sand. I'm applying what I've done to that. And my heart rate can be high. I can be zone 3, 4, and 5, but I only do it once a week. It's maybe the toughest workout I do, but that's my VO2 max stuff. But I can only do it because I spent so much time walking, doing low end stuff, moving around as much as I can throughout the day. Walking is a legitimate way of building an aerobic base, a strong aerobic base, and burning fat while you're doing it.
And I think if runners are honest about it, walking actually does a lot of the same things that running does for them, whether you're talking about the mindfulness or being connected out with nature or whatever, just getting away from your phone, getting away from your normal day. It's like it's checking a lot of the boxes, but those negatives of injury. And also, let's talk quickly about I know you've said you can't outrun a bad diet, but also the turn of the phrase of saying basically what happens when you start running a lot is your appetite goes nuts, especially if you're practicing that slog. Even compared to strength training and building mass or whatever, there's nothing that compares to the hunger that you get, the unrelenting hunger from endurance training. And a lot of times you'll get injured, then all of a sudden the weight comes back on, you've already lost the muscle, it's a total mess.
You've lost the muscle, the weight, and now you're injured, but the appetite remains.
Yes.
And so it becomes a real struggle, an internal struggle and a battle, unnecessary battle to diet, which we both hate that word, which calls upon the original concept here, that is 80% of your body composition happens is how you choose to eat. If you can reconfigure your diet to make you metabolically flexible so that you burn fat at rest, or even doing low-level activities, even zone 2 activities, that's where you're going to lose the body fat. Anything else is not going to contribute to that. I mean, one of the problems with cortisol production and chronic cortisol production from running every day is cortisol raises insulin. Insulin, is a sort of a pre-diabetic issue. Now, the higher the insulin is, it takes the glucose out of your bloodstream, it sequesters it in the fat cells. Now you don't even have access to the carbohydrate that you just ate. So you're hungry more often. You're hungry every 2 or 3 hours. It's a vicious cycle that I think is best broken. I wouldn't say can only be broken, but is best broken by reconfiguring your diet so you become good at burning your stored body fat, regardless of how much work you're doing. Now that raises another issue, which is, but Mark, I burn more calories when I'm running. Look, I tell people, don't count the calories when you're walking. The calories are irrelevant. Part of what we talk about, there's a study in the book that we talk about, sort of the compensatory nature of the human body, that whether they're indigenous people living in Africa or South America, or you're a couch potato, all of these different people burn about the same number of calories every day. So whether you're walking or whether you're running, if you're running a lot and burning off 1,000 calories, it just means there's 1,000 calories you won't burn the rest of the day. So you still would have, by walking and moving a lot and and just living your life and enjoying your life, you would have burned about the same number of calories as you would busting your ass on a hard 48-minute run and then sitting on the sofa the rest of the afternoon and tired because you're beat up from the work you did. So counting calories is not a good way to do any sort of exercise program. Yes, you have to do the work, but the whole calories in, calories out equation, it should be better described as calories stored versus calories burned. And that becomes a hormonal equation. Like a certain type of calories I can take in, and the hormonal response to that food might be either to store it or to burn it. And if you can train your body to do that, to burn stored body fat, generate that or acquire that metabolic flexibility, then the calorie thing is irrelevant. You can do whatever amount of work you want to do. And you point is, you don't need to go sweat to feel like you're melting the fat off your body, right? You're just beating yourself up. Why not just walk a lot, enjoy the walk? And like you said, I go you one better and say walking is even better for your psyche, for your creativity, for your enjoyment of stuff. Like if you want to think about a work project or craft a letter to somebody or write a blog post or whatever it is, walking is a lot more productive than running. And I've done both, and I've used both as a sort of meditative experience. If you walk, you probably listen better to a podcast. If you're listening to a podcast, you probably get more out of it walking. And you just, you're when you're running, you're quite often disassociating from the discomfort. So you've got headphones on, you're listening, to Metallica or to some, headbanger stuff to just get you out of the situation that you've put yourself into mentally. When in fact, if you really loved running, you'd never wear headphones. You'd associate with the sounds and the smells and the feelings and the breath pattern and the strides and the arm positioning, and you'd be always refining and redefining and reframing all of these aspects of your run because you love it so much and you're so into it. That happens and that exists. I mean, they used to say that what defines a great runner from a good runner is association versus dissociation. They used to say that the good runners, not the great ones, were dissociators. Like in order to adapt to the conditions and deal with the pain and the discomfort, they would like design and build a house in their mind while they're running, right? The associators were the ones who were, okay, my breathing, one in two, out two, my stride pattern. How's my ankle doing? That's good. I think I'm going to adjust this. How's my arm swing? Always in real time, in the moment, dealing with the realities of the discomfort, but in a way that associates with it rather than trying to invent some way to suggest that it doesn't exist. Does that make sense? I'm trying to.
It definitely does, because I think we can all probably relate to the fact that we at least want to escape sometimes, and we know that certain people have a ridiculous tolerance for pain, especially during exercise, and those people are usually somewhere else. They're not connected to their bodies, and so when you do connect to your body, you notice the injuries before they happen. You make those adjustments, right? And so that can be the difference. Instead of running through the pain at no matter what the cost, you're actually tuning in and cleaning things up as you go, right?
Right. I mean, and by the way, an injury is your body's way of telling you you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were doing it right, you would not get injured. So it's either a biomechanical injury and whole section that we talk about in Born to Walk about shoes and about how horrible they are for your biomechanics. And, I'm trying to push people into more minimalist footwear where they get ground feel. They can feel the ground underneath. They have toe splay, so their big toes not squished up against the other toes, where their heel's not raised and therefore shortening their calf muscle and then putting pressure on their Achilles. All of these so-called accommodations that high-tech running shoes offer are actually counterproductive to good running and definitely counterproductive to good walking, right? So these high-heeled, high-thick, 40 millimeter high cushioned cloud-like shoes, they encourage bad form. So people run with bad form thinking, and they try the shoes on in the shoe store and they're like, oh my God, these are so soft. These are softer than the last pair I had.
Yeah.
And they walk down the aisle, maybe jog the last 2 steps down the aisle of the shoe store. And they're, oh, these are great. I'll take them. And then they get home and they start running them. And they wonder why their knees hurt or their lower back hurts or they've got something going on. It's because when you cut off that input, that sensory input that the bottoms of the feet require in order to organize the kinetic chain from the bottoms of the feet up through the ankles, up through the knees, up through the hips. The brain, but if you're barefoot, for instance, by the time you weight that forward foot, the brain has all the information it needs on how to scrunch the arch, maybe around the rock you're stepping on, or flex the toes to accommodate the divot or ditch that you've stepped in, or the twig that you're stepping on, or the rock. How much to roll the ankle out a little bit, maybe so that the knee doesn't have to get tweaked, because in the absence of that information, if the foot is encased in this thick, cushioned, stiff shoe, and now you step sideways on a rock, first thing to go is the knee, because you stabilize the ankle so much that the knee is the first point of weakness, weak link. Well, when you have thin-soled shoes and wide, flat, flexible toe box, the brain says, oh, okay, this is how much we roll the ankle to accommodate that. Maybe we have to bend the knee, dip the knee a little bit lower now because of this. Maybe we have to, rotate the hip a little bit to offset the impact trauma of that footfall, whether you're walking or running or sprinting or jumping or dancing or throwing a football or setting yourself up for a golf shot or a baseball swing or a hockey shot. It all starts with the feet. And walking is the best thing we can do for our feet. So every good step you take walking improves the strength of your feet, improves the resilience and the mobility of your feet. But it requires that you either be barefoot or in some minimalist shoe to really optimize that.
Mm-hmm. And then as far as the body composition goes, what was your racing weight again compared to now?
So I raced at 142 and I weigh 172 now. So I weigh 30 pounds more. In the book, I say I get 20 pounds more of muscle mass because I probably have 20 pounds more of muscle and a little bit more bone because my bones are denser.
Sure.
But I'm pretty much the same body fat when I was a runner. So I raced at 142. I'm 172 now. Now, when I raced at 142, I'm 5'10". Number one, I was probably 10 pounds overweight for an elite marathoner. So I should have weighed 132, but I lifted weights. I knew enough in those days that I should lift weights. So I kept some upper body weight on, which had me at 142. Now, the only thing that's changed in the last 40 years, 35 years anyway, is I stopped running. So I stopped being catabolic. So as soon as I stopped running and started doing more anabolic stuff like walking and easy stuff, and then high-level sprinting and very high-intensity stuff, but for short bursts, I put on 20 pounds of muscle. So that's a real eye-opener right there. I raced at 142. I should have weighed 132, and yet my VO2 max. You go, well, Mark, you're not doing any high level. You're not running hard multiple times a week. What happened to your VO2 max? I thought VO2 max was like the prime indicator of longevity now. So my VO2 max, and I've had it tested recently, is in the top 5% of my age group, in the 95th percentile for my age group, just like it was 95th, not 1%, but 95th percent when I was 27 years old and an elite racer. So for my age group, I'm in the same category. The difference is I'm stronger in every other metric, right? I literally can sprint better. I can deadlift more. I can, I mean, a lot of the metrics that, look, I'm not setting personal bests on the bench anymore, right? But what I'm saying is, as an organism that's trying to be thriving across all planes, not just become a skinny ass runner that runs a 38-minute 10K and wins my age group, but as a human being trying to be able to enjoy life, to play with my grandchildren, wrestle with my grandson, stand up paddle for an hour with the dolphins, ride a fat bike on the beach, snowboard, play ultimate frisbee, and then I can hang, dead hang for a minute 30. I can I can do a hex bar deadlift almost twice my weight, 1.75 times my weight.
Yeah.
I can bench my weight, a couple times now. I mean, I'm strong across a lot of different platforms versus some cardio beast that's um, that's advanced and accelerated the aging process because I chose to just do chronic cardio my whole life.
Yeah. So interesting because I was also very similar. I'm a little shorter. I'm 5'9", and I was at like 147, 148 when I was doing a lot of marathoning. And now I'm about 30 pounds heavier than that and have been for many years. Much, much stronger, much faster, feel a heck of a lot better too. And then I'm much more useful. We've moved house a few times and I've had to actually lift heavy things, functionally, and being useful is really nice compared to being like completely useless, gassed out as someone who just ran the 10 or 20 miler that day. Completely useless. You can't use any of your muscles. You're not going to be like volunteering to help anyone else around the house or around the neighborhood because you're sapped, as opposed to being strong, feeling good, full of energy and all that. It's just, it's night and day when you're comparing the lifestyle factors of cross training versus this endurance specialization, right?
And that's what I want for people. So, if somebody says, well, don't tell me what to do. I want to be a runner and I want to be skinny and, whatever. I'm like, okay, go for it. My job in life is to identify opportunities that we all have to, turn on those hidden genetic switches that we all have to build muscle and to burn fat and to do all those things. But I don't have the way. I have a way. I have a way to enjoy your life better. I've set, beginning with the Primal Blueprint, a template for living your life better, how to eat, how to sleep, how to, you don't have to do what I suggest, but if you tell me I want to enjoy my life, I want to be stronger across all platforms, I want to be able to play games and do things, then I'm going to say, well, running is not your best choice. There are a lot better ways to do that. By the way, if you want to enter a 5K or a 10K in 4 months, I can have you toe the line in that race and do better, perform better on my strategy that involves a lot of walking than if you just grind it out, 35 miles a week, struggling and suffering at a heart rate that's too high to burn fat, but too low to build aerobic capacity. And literally accelerating the aging process within your body. Why would you want to do that to yourself? Especially since you probably have the burdens of the regular stressful burdens of life. Like you got a family you're trying to take care of, or a spouse that you're trying, or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever that you're trying to, go navigate life with. You've got a job that might be stressful. You've got, overdue bills. You've got family members that are sick, whatever it is. Everybody's got a layer of stress already. Why would you add an unnecessary layer of chronic cardio, burnout, stress, running, when I'm telling you we're not born to run, we're born to walk, and you get so much further down this path of longevity and enjoyment of life by backing off and slowing down and being mindful about it.
What have you seen in terms of people going from like not walking at all and not wanting to, not seeing that in their lifestyle at all, and then actually doing it on a regular basis? Have there been any?
Yeah. So there's two, you come at it from two different angles. One is the ex-runners who are like, Jesus, thanks for writing this book, Mark, because I thought walking I can't run anymore. I gave up running years ago. I used to do it. I got injured. I'm over it. I hated the fact that I was injured and sick all the time. Thank you for giving me permission to walk. I see it now. I'm going to embrace the hell out of it. My ex-roommate from prep school was a perfect example. He was a lifetime runner, and he was not a great runner, but he was an adequate runner, a fairly good runner. And one day, and he was like very successful guy. I mean, he was a commissioner of the IRS for a while. He was with deputy director of immigration naturalization. He helped create Homeland Security. He's been in government service and public service over the years. And one day he goes, I'm depressed. I can't because I can't run anymore. I'm like, dude, get on a treadmill, put the elevation at 10 and you watch your heart rate go up. He found a whole new lease on life.
Wow.
No injury. He started losing, because he was gaining weight from the appetite that he had and the depression that he had from not being able to run. I worked on his eating strategies a little bit. So he rediscovered he rediscovered walking from having been a pretty good runner. On the other hand, you have people who've never run, but don't walk because they have heard that the only way to do this is to run, and that walking isn't burning calories, and so walking is useless. Like, why? So these are people who don't have the right information and are like, I'm screwed because I can't run, and apparently walking's not that beneficial. Why would I do it? So I'm just going to sit here and gain weight and atrophy and, have my lower back go up. So I have a lot of people who have now seen that, oh my God, like all I got to do to start walking is start walking, right? I can just go out and walk down to the mailbox and back day one, and then add 100 yards to it every day. And within a couple of weeks, I'm doing a mile and 2 miles. And the next thing you know, I mean, I have people in my building. I live in South Miami in South Florida. And I've got, people it's a building of all ages, but my wife has a lot of friends who are over 60, over 65. They walk 6, 7, 8 miles a day, found a whole new lease on life. It's like, oh my God, like they can't wait to walk and they're walking in Peluvas, by the way, they're walking in minimalist shoes. And so their bunions are getting fixed. Their plantar fasciitis is getting fixed. It's an incredible study in the power and the benefit of walking. And while they're walking, like my wife called me one day and she went out with them and she said, geez, I went out for a 3-mile walk. We wound up doing 8 miles because we were talking and having such a good time. Nobody said, oh my God, let's extend it 5 miles. We just started getting into it and talking and walking, and they walk briskly. And so too, I want to give runners permission to walk again, for sure. And I want to give everybody else, I want to say, look, walking is not only something you can do, it's probably the best thing you can do for the rest of your life. Now, that's a pretty potent statement, but when you say the rest of your life, one of the things that defines the end of life is movement. Like once you stop moving, you start dying. So the longer you can move, probably the longer you live. My next door neighbor, downstairs neighbor, is Dan Buettner, the Blue Zones guy.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And, we are very good friends, and we give each other endless grief about the choice of protein, because I'm a beef guy. He's a bean guy. So sometimes I say the only thing we differ on is the last 2 letters of that word, But he will say, the main thing about all the Blue Zones communities is they do a lot of low-level activity, walk a lot, and they garden, and they're out moving around. Ancient Asian societies that do Tai Chi and Qigong, they're not like punching, they're doing slow movement and putting their bodies through different planes and ranges of motion and things like that. That's what the body requires. It doesn't require that you go, beat it up 6 out of 7 days a week for years on end with nothing to show for it at the end except a beat up, stressed body that's sick more often, that's more prone to injury, and at the end of the day didn't lose any body fat.
Yeah. Man, in just a few minutes that we have left, I would love to have you, Mark, touch upon or at least preview a bit of what you're looking at in the world of longevity, because especially these days, I mean, there's no shortage of things to try. We've got peptides, stem cells, gene editing technologies, and all sorts of different things. So where are you at? Where do you think things are going? What are the shortcuts that people maybe shouldn't try right now? What are we looking at?
Yeah. Look, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask this because I'm the anti-biohacking guy.
Sure.
I am so suspect of most of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I see new vitamin preparations come on the market that were big 40 years ago when I started in vitamins. They fell out of favor. Now they're back, and now they're the hot new kid on the block. I've seen a good example is cold plunging. Like, I was cold plunging 15 years ago in my unheated swimming pool in Malibu. I stopped doing it about 1.5 years ago. I do it once in a while, but it's like I never got the anti-inflammatory aspect of it. I never understood that. Now they're saying, by the way, don't cold plunge after a workout because you want the inflammation benefits of inflammation after a workout. So if you cold plunge, you'll negate the workout. So don't cold plunge between, for 4 hours after the workout. Don't cold plunge at the end of a stressful day because it's a hormetic stress. It is a stress. So I stopped cold plunging a couple of years ago, and now I'm just doing sauna. And there is some. I think Rhonda Patrick is among those who will say that there's some research that shows that sauna over a lifetime extends decreases risk. You can't just say it extends your life,
right?
But decreases risk for certain things. I mean, I'm so old school. I don't do any of the wearables. I don't track my sleep. I don't trust the data.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that bad data is worse than no data.
Yeah.
So I operate my entire life on how do I feel? How do I feel? I want to feel good in the moment. I don't want to risk feeling bad now for something that might happen 20 years down the road. Like I might get an extra week or not on the end of my life for something I do today that's painful and causes an issue. Brian Johnson, God love him. He's seems like a nice guy, sweet guy. But first of all, don't die. Are you fucking kidding me? That's your slogan, is don't die? If that doesn't encapsulate the entire biohacking community, how about live now and have fun and enjoy? But I feel like he's putting off many of life's amazing adventures and hedonistic pleasures now so that one day he might survive a couple more years. And by the way, I think it's highly unlikely. I think some of the things he's doing are probably counterproductive to living a longer life. But it's his journey. I don't want to take away from him. I think he's entertaining. I think he's an interesting point of view in the space. But I don't track sleep. Sleep trackers are among the worst. I'll wake up one morning, oh my God, I slept great. And then my wife, who has a tracker on our bed, she goes, says you got a 72. I'm like, what the fuck? I slept great. Don't tell me.
Yeah. What a buzzkill.
What a buzzkill. Now I'm going to worry about my sleep. Now I won't sleep tomorrow night or tonight because I'm worried about not getting enough sleep when I think I'm getting sleep. HRV, would tell you, you're ready to go do a hard workout today. I'm like, I'll tell you when I'm ready to do a hard workout, when I feel like it.
Yeah.
And if I don't, like there's days I go to the gym and I'm go with all the best intentions of having a really killer hard leg day. I get 2 exercises in, I'm going, no, today's not the day. I'm taking today off. And what do? I go for a walk because you can always go for a walk, and it's always a productive end of a workout without compromising your health in a way that going for a long run would be doing if you chose to switch those. So longevity. I mean, like I said, I was gonna write the anti-longevity book. It was literally going to be
anti-longevity.
Well, not anti, but just the concept of like, it was like, my original T-shirt. You had one, I think. It said "Live long, drop dead."
Yeah.
That was my concept, was enjoy your life, live a long life, enjoy it, and then, die of natural causes when it's time. So, is Dave Asprey going to live to 160? I don't think so. And in the meantime, the goofy glasses, all of the little, the hacks and the lights and the therapies and the buzz sounds and Jesus, I mean, I go to these. Like I'm going to speak at one of the conferences coming up this summer. Are you going to? You are, right? At Tim Biohackers.
I might be. I haven't confirmed yet, but I might be. I would love to see
it. Summit. It's going to be good. I'm going to speak there, and I'm going to talk about. Well, I'll talk about walking, but I'll talk about these low tech. They're not even hacks. They're so low tech. They're not even hacks. They're just like. By the way, the term hack has the connotation. It was originally the connotation about some unethical or illegal way of circumventing a system.
Yeah. In music, it is not a good word. Hacking is not a good thing.
No.
You do not want to be a hack.
Right. Yeah. So what are the things? Walking, getting enough sleep, controlling your diet, being in control of your eating strategy to the extent that you determine what to do, not your hunger and appetite and cravings. I mean, those are the top 3, and those will get you 85% of where you need to be. The rest may or may not even contribute. We go back, like nobody I know today even does a ketone reading anymore because I was one of the early ones that said, why are you testing ketones? You get to the point where you're bragging like, I'm in such ketosis, I'm 4 millimolar or 5 millimolar. I'm in ketosis. And I'm like, okay, well, what that tells me is that you're not good at burning ketones. Because if you were good at burning ketones, you'd be at 0.5 and your brain would be using just enough ketones to get you by, and your liver would be producing just enough. But right now, your body is overproducing ketones. You're spilling them out in your urine. You're spilling them out in your breath. And you're bragging to me that you have this ketosis, which is, and osis is not necessarily a good thing, right? And so I think I helped kind of quash that a little bit, going, let's be keto adapted, let's be metabolically flexible, but let's not brag about the high ketones that we're putting out just because we're chasing numbers with no outcome downstream, no goal, no intention of what that represents. Other than today, I was 5 millimolar. Well, Jesus, I mean, okay, good. Your breath smells. Get out of my face.
I'm totally with you, Mark. And I really appreciate you speaking candidly about all of this, because there is a lot of tomfoolery and nonsense, and just like people with something to sell that may not be serving people on the other end with all these gimmicky new technologies, especially. So
no, you go to some of these shows and I look at some of the gear and like expensive gear. And I'm like, oh my God, like, some of these people have these programs that you pay $100,000 a year membership to be able to use the hyperbaric chamber and the, and this device and that device and get a NAD infusion and whatever. And I'm like, I mean, where does it end? And at what point are people going to go, like stem cells? I'll give you an example. Stem cells. I went inappropriately. I went and had a stem cell infusion a year and a half ago in Costa Rica. And, a friend of mine convinced me that it was good and it was going to, fine. And I'm like, okay, I have the money. Because it's very expensive. My wife and I went down, 5 of us went down, and we got, we went through this plasmapheresis where they take your blood out and they clean it and put it back in. And while I'm doing it, I'm like, Jesus, Mark, you know better than this. And so I did the infusion. Nothing happened. I didn't have any benefit. It was a systemic infusion. And I did it in advance of getting my hip replaced. So I thought, I'll see if this does anything. Maybe I won't need a hip replacement. So there's that. But at any rate, came back. And then a few months later, a friend of mine, a prominent person in Miami, went to Mexico for the same thing and died of anaphylactic shock.
Oh my God.
From a stem cell, a so-called stem cell treatment. So I'm like, okay, I'm taking a step back from that. I should have relied on my instincts and should have trusted the science, which is essentially non-existent at this point. There's just anecdotal stuff going on, and wait until, something else crops up. But, I see exosomes everywhere. I see, umbilical cord derived stem cells. I see, autologous stem cell stuff. I mean, I don't want my 72-year-old stem cells to be regenerated in me. Who knows? Anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but that's what this longevity, this biohacking community is doing. It's taking people down massive rabbit holes. And I'm like, no, stop. How do you feel right now? I feel great. Okay, good. We're off to a great start. Your blood works good. You feel good. You're energetic. You're excited to get out of bed every day because you have purpose. I mean, that's like more important than anything else. I mean, I wonder about all these people who are chasing the numbers and still don't have like a purpose in life. Like, so
just be a big distraction, right?
It's a big distraction, I think. Yeah. And that's, and by the way, so running morphed into this anti-aging thing. So running was that distraction for a long time. Running's my panacea. That's how I'm going to get younger. That's how I'm going to get, live longer, get my cardiovascular fitness. And then now many of those people have moved on to biohacking and longevity and that artificial community that I'm thinking has just gone way off the deep end.
Yeah, it's so funny because like
prove me wrong.
We'll see. Yeah. I have a lot of people coming up these days where I'm just hanging out in Austin or whatever, and it's like, what are you into? A lot of people are saying to me, they're just like, I'm really into longevity. They're like my age or 30 and they're 25. I'm like, what does that mean you're into? Like, you're 27 years old, man. Like, what are you talking about? So it seems like in looking forward, there's kind of this line, and in the health world, you might be on either side of it, but I'm really glad that for the most part, many folks like you who have been leaders in the ancestral health movement for a long time are still sticking with Mother Nature on this one, because I think it's pretty easy to go wrong once we start thinking that we're smarter than Mother Nature, right?
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Right on. Well, Mark, thanks so much for joining us once again and all of your work. What is the best place for people to find you, all of your various projects, and especially Born to Walk?
Okay, so Born to Walk is available for sale now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and every other place that you could buy books. I recorded the Audible, so if you want to hear me talk about it, that's the place to go. If you want to look a bit, look into it before you buy it. The website is borntowalkbook.com. If you want to try our shoes, our 5-toed minimalist shoes, that's Peluva, Peluva, Peluva.com. On Instagram, we are Wear Peluva, Wear Peluva. I'm Mark Sisson Primal on Instagram, and I'm posting something a couple times a week. Something that raises eyebrows here or there, based on the contrarian stance that I tend to take on a lot of things. And and Abel, keep up your great work too, man. I mean, it's great to talk with you always, and we share a common heritage going back to 2010. So, yeah.
Really appreciate it. Look forward to the next time having you on here, Mark.
All right. Thanks, man. Take care.
Hey, Abel here one more time. And if you believe in our mission to create a world where health is the norm, not sickness, here are a few things you can do to help keep this show coming your way. Click like, subscribe, and leave a quick review wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts. You can also subscribe to my new Substack channel for an ad-free version of this show in video and audio. That's at abeljames.substack.com. You can also find me on Twitter or X, YouTube, as well as Fountain FM, where you can leave a little crypto in the tip jar. And if you can think of someone you care about who might learn from or enjoy this show, please take a quick moment to share it with them. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.